Hi guys, this is O-Level Chemistry, paper 11, June 2021, question 11. The relative formula masses of four compounds are given. A student has a 1 gram sample of each compound. Which sample contains the highest number of moles of oxygen atoms? So there are two ways of doing this question. One, we calculate the number of moles of oxygen. The other thing is we calculate the amount of oxygen present in the molecule. So let's do the amount of oxygen present in the molecule method. In the case of aluminum oxide, we have got 3 moles of oxygen. For copper, we've got 1 mole of oxygen. For sulfuric acid, we've got 4 moles of oxygen. And for HNO3, we've got 3 moles of oxygen atoms present. So what do? We calculate the mass of 3 moles of oxygen, which is 16 into 3, which is 48. Then we divide 48 by 102, which is the MR, and we multiply this by 100. This will give us the percentage of oxygen in the compound. So the greater the percentage of oxygen, the greater would be the moles of oxygen in the compound. So this is an alternate method of doing this question. So 48 upon 102 into 100 will give us a value of 47%. Now for B, it would be 1 mole of oxygen, so 16 upon its MR is 80 into 100. This will give us a percentage of 20%. For the third one, it would be 4 oxygen, so 16 4 is 64. 64 upon 98 into 100. This would give us a percentage of 65. And for the last one, we have 3 oxygen atoms. So 16 into 3 is 48. 48 divided by 63 into 100 would give us a percentage of 76% by mass of oxygen, which would mean that the greatest moles of oxygen would be present in HNO3, making option D the correct option for this question. Question 12. How many elements combine to form the compound ammonium sulfate? So the formula of ammonium sulfate is NH4 taken twice and SO4. So what do we have here? We have nitrogen, we have hydrogen, we have sulfur, and we have oxygen. So altogether, four different elements are present in ammonium sulfate, making option B the correct option for this question. Question 13. An aqueous mixture of copper to nitrate and silver nitrate is electrolyzed with pure copper electrodes. Which half equation correctly describes the change at the anode? So we have a pure copper electrode. Anode is where oxidation takes place. So the anode is made of copper. So copper will undergo oxidation. So when copper is oxidized, copper is converted into Cu2 positive ions by losing 2 electrons. So this equation is present in option A. In option B, we have copper ions being reduced to copper metal. This can take place at the cathode, not the anode. We have silver being oxidized in the case of C, but this would happen if we had silver electrodes. And we have silver being reduced to silver metal. This would happen when this was being done at the cathode. So this makes option A the correct option for this question. Question 14. The diagram shows the electrolysis of concentrated and dilute aqueous sodium chloride using inert electrodes. Gases are produced and collected in each of the test tubes W, X, Y, and Z. Okay. Which statements are correct? Approximately equal volumes of gas are produced and collected in test tubes W and X. W and X. W would have collection of chlorine gas because it is the positive terminal where oxidation is occurring, so chloride ions will be oxidized to chlorine, and this is the concentrated solution. So chlorine and hydrogen. So this statement is correct because equal quantities of chlorine and hydrogen would be collected. In two, we have approximately equal volumes of gas are produced and collected in test tubes Y and Z. Now the problem is in test tube Y, we have collection of oxygen, and in Z we have collection of hydrogen. So when oxygen is collected from the electrolysis of water, the ratio of hydrogen to oxygen is 2:1. So the quantity of hydrogen gas collected would be twice the quantity of oxygen gas collected. So the quantity in Y would be half of the quantity in Z, because Y we have collection of oxygen and Z we have collection of hydrogen. So hydrogen would be double the volume of oxygen. So statement 2 is incorrect. Statement 3. Three different gases are produced in the experiment. Yes, hydrogen, chlorine, and oxygen. Because in the concentrated solution, chlorine gas is produced. In the dilute solution, oxygen gas is produced. Whereas for the cathode, in both cases, we have production of hydrogen gas. So hydrogen, oxygen, and chlorine. Three. So statement 3 is correct. This makes option D the correct option for this question. Question 15. Which positive ions are present in aqueous copper sulfate? Since it is aqueous copper sulfate and they're talking about positive ions present, we would have Cu2 positive ions from copper sulfate and we would have H positive ions from water present. And if they had talked about the anions present, we would have had sulfate ions from copper sulfate and we would have had hydroxide ions from water. So option A has copper only, it is neglecting hydrogen. B has copper and hydrogen. This is correct. C has sulfate, which would be an anion, and D has sulfate and hydroxide, which would be both the anions present. So this makes option B the correct option for this question. Question 16. Three statements refer to hydrogen and its use as a fuel. Statement 1. Both water and hydrocarbons can be used as a source of hydrogen. Yes, electrolysis of water and cracking of hydrocarbons will produce hydrogen. 2. In a fuel cell, hydrogen reacts with oxygen to generate electricity. Yes, the fuel for a fuel cell are hydrogen and oxygen gases. 3. The reaction takes place in a fuel cell is a redox reaction. Yes, H positive ions are reduced to hydrogen gas and oxygen hydroxide ions are oxidized to oxygen. So it is a redox reaction that is taking place. So which statements are correct? Statement D, rather option D containing all three statements is the correct option for this question. Question 17. Ethanol is produced by the fermentation of glucose from sugarcane. In some countries, ethanol is used as a fuel. Yes, it is mainly used as a fuel in Brazil. Which statements are correct? One, sugarcane is a non-renewable finite resource. No, it is not finite. We can grow as much sugarcane as we want. So it is a renewable source of energy. So statement one becomes incorrect. Statement two, when sugarcane is grown, growing, it removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Yes, because when sugarcane is growing, it undergoes photosynthesis in which carbon dioxide combines with water to produce glucose and gives off oxygen gas. So because CO2 is being consumed, then it is removing CO2 from the atmosphere. Statement 2 is correct. So now we have to select which statements are correct. So only statement 2 is correct, which makes option B the correct option for this question. Question 18. Which changes will speed up a chemical reaction? Decreasing the pressure in a reaction between gases. It's supposed to speed up. If we decrease the pressure, that means the collision between the gas molecules would decrease, and this would not speed up the chemical reaction. So this is wrong. 2. Increasing the size of the solid particles in a reaction involving solid. The greater the size, the slower the reaction. So this is wrong. 3. Increasing the temperature of any reaction. Yes, an increase in temperature increases the rate of reaction. So it speeds up the chemical reaction. 3 is correct. 4, increasing the concentration of the solution. The greater the concentration of the solution, the greater the frequency of collision between the reactant particles, and hence the greater the rate of reaction. So statement 4 is also correct. Only 3 and 4 are correct. This makes option C the correct option for this question. Question 19. Magnesium reacts with dilute sulfuric acid. Two experiments are carried out at 25 degrees Celsius. Okay, temperature is constant here. Experiment 1 uses 24 grams of powdered magnesium is reacted with 100 cm cube of 1 mole per dm cube sulfuric acid. And in experiment 2, 24 grams, which is the same, of powdered magnesium is reacted with 50 cm cube of 2 mole per dm cube sulfuric acid. Okay, so the number of moles of sulfuric acid used are the same because that is 100 into 1, which is 100 divided by 1000, which is 0.1 moles. Whereas for experiment 2, it would be 50 into 2, which is 100 divided by 1000, which is equal to again 0.1 mole per dm cube. So not mole per dm cube, moles. So we have 0.1 moles reacting in each case. However, the concentration in experiment 2 for the acid is twice the concentration in experiment 1. That means when experiment 2 takes place, the gas that is produced, which is hydrogen gas, would be produced more quickly, but the quantity of gas produced will remain the same because the number of moles of acid and the number of moles of metal are the same. So in the graphs, they have given us a key that the solid line is experiment 1 and the dotted line is experiment 2. So experiment 1 is the same in all cases. Experiment 2, in case of A, it has the same volume of hydrogen being produced, but it is being produced more quickly. This is what happens when the concentration of acid is more. So this is the correct option. Now let's look at the wrong options. B. In B, the dotted line is below the solid line. This shows that the concentration used is lesser than 1 mole per dm cube of sulfuric acid. That is why it is taking more time to produce the same amount, but the number of moles remain the same. So B is wrong. In C and D both, the dotted line is below the solid line, which means that the overall moles of acid are lesser than in case of A and B, which means that the volume of hydrogen produced is lesser than in experiment 1, making option C and D incorrect. Thus, option A is the correct option for this question. Question 20. In which equation is the change in the underlined species correct? So in CH4, the charge on carbon would be -4 because hydrogen will carry a positive charge, and the charge on carbon in CO2 would be +4 because the charge on oxide ion is -2 and there are two oxides ion. So -4 on oxygen, so +4 on carbon. So -4 to +4 is oxidation, yes. In 2, we have sulfur. Sulfur will have a charge of -2 because hydrogen will carry the positive charge. And in sulfur solid, there would be a charge of 0. So heading from -2 to 0 is oxidation. This process is known as reduction over here, which is wrong. So option 2 becomes incorrect. And in option 3, we have got bromide ions with a charge of -1 being converted into bromine with a charge of 0. -1 to 0 is oxidation. The process mentioned here is called reduction, which is wrong. So option 3 is incorrect, making option 1 as the only correct option out of the three present. And thus, for this question, option A is the correct option.